Hi, everybody. Happy summer. I've been waiting all year to get this list of fun books together for you for the summertime. And it is time. Welcome back to Talking Books with Tanisha. I'm Tanisha. I am a person who loves reading, who loves sharing books, who loves talking about books, and who loves reading all the really fun stories. And Talking Books with Tanisha is all about helping people expand their horizon around what books are possible. I can't possibly read every single book that's out there, but there are a lot of books that I do read. And there's books I feel like should not just be kept with me, but a way to kind of share them out with everyone. I also believe that literacy is like the gateway to everything, like knowing how to read, having a love of your own story, having love of other stories allows you to grow as a person. It allows you to have new perspectives and ideas, and allows you to have strengths and opportunities. So being able to talk about reading is what I hope also will be the entryway into really getting more people to be reading, sharing their stories, whether they're old stories or new stories, and really just creating an excitement around it so that the youth that we have around us are also excited about it. We have some really amazing authors that I'm going to be sharing with you today. Some really great titles. Like I said, the summer dump, this is like the summer season dump, which really means I put a bunch of books together that I have not done a review on, but really wanted to say for, what are the books you want to read during the summertime? Assuming that your summer gets to be a little bit low key than the rest of your year, and the books that just kind of put you into a really fun or interesting or kind of thoughtful mood, the books that you can put into a bag with you if you're going to the park, going to the beach, going on a cruise, taking a tour around the world, whatever it is you're doing, these are some books for you, and I hope that they fit into your book, your summer dump book this year, your book, your summer book dump this year. Um, and I want to encourage you to come back and like to look at the other books I've also reviewed and talked about, because some of those might be really great books for you too. And these are a mixture of adult books and young adult books. So it's really good for ages, I would say between 11 all the way up, to whatever ages. So let's get started. And there's a lot of them. So some of them you'll see on the picture in like the cover of this video, and some are yet to be shared because there are books that I have in my TBR pile, my to be read pile, that I got just for my own self this summer to be reading. I want to share those with you as well. So the first, I always only review books that I've read. So please know that these are books I've actually have gone through and read and really enjoyed. And those are books that I want to read. And I'm going to share that with you towards the end. If you're liking what you are seeing, please like and subscribe and share with everyone. The more information we have about the love of literacy out there, the more people we have reading, the more people we have read, the more opportunities get to come. And the excitement around reading can be built and continue to thrive. So here we go. I hope you're ready to take out some notes if you want to, or stop this video, jot some things down. If you're driving in the car and listening to it, come back and like play it with you for yourself. I'm going to give you titles. I'm going to give you really quick synopsis. I'm going to give you authors, because if you like what you're reading from the authors that I'm talking about, they have other books. And I try to always find books. Not all the time will I be able to find them. Most of the time I can find books where they've written more than one book. And so I encourage you to go and find your favorite authors and like read the books that they have, because if you like what an author's writing, even if the style's a little bit different from the book that you originally read, you usually will like what they've written before. So on that note, I'm going to start with Tiffany D. Jackson. And I've talked about her before. She read one of the books called Monday's Not Coming. This is a book, one of her first books actually, called Allegedly. Um, and I hope that you can see this. So there we go. So Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson is about a girl who was put into the prison system, the juvenile prison system, at the age of 9, and was accused of killing a baby. It's a really dark kind of like, tone and a little bit of a dark story. And yet there's something really interesting about how Tiffany D. Jackson tells the story that makes you not want to like leave the book. And it is filled with like twists and turns and questions and never ending kind of like considerations like, what is happening in this book? It's a perfect summary because it makes you like just kind of float along with the story, and it makes you kind of question some things. So the first one's Allegedly. That's the first book I got for you. Tiffany D. Jackson, like I said, I've read some other books by her before. They always have kind of a theme around adults and kids and like just things to kind of question. So if you like those kind of like, I would say more ethical kind of like thought-provoking kind of like questioning around a story, like That's definitely a good book for you. Now, many of you remember, because this is a book that was really, really hot last summer. Um, and it was by Kennedy Ryan, the author of Before I Let Go. Everyone was reading her book last year. It was amazing. And I remember getting caught up in that bandwagon. I read the book and I really, really enjoyed it. It was a perfect summer read. Well, she had some characters in that book, and one of those characters in that book has a spinoff, Soledad. And Soledad's story is This Could Be Us. And This Could Be Us is a story of her kind of trying to figure out where love lives for herself. She has three daughters that she's raising, and things were going well, and then things were going so well. And it is a love story. It's a story of like, what do you do when you know that the person that you are attracted to may not be the right person for you, not because they're not a good person, because other things are happening at that time, other things are impacting that relationship. But Kennedy Ryan knows how to tell a really good love story and intrigue story. And I would say it's more kind of like a fun romance. They called Before I Let Go kind of like a steamy book. This might be kind of like a steamy book. Like it's a fun summer read on the beach with like your hat on, the umbrella around you, your sunglasses on, just kind of zoning out the rest of the world. And it's amazing. It's a fun read. It's a quick read. This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. So Becky Albertalli is one of my favorite authors. And she's written a couple books with Adam Silveri, who also had like written books like, Here's to Us and What If It's Us. And I read her book last year, Imogene, obviously. She has another book, a newer book called Kate in Waiting. And this book is really great because Kate, which is like right here, Kate and her best friend, um, Andy, are like codependent best friends. And pretty much whoever Andy has a crush on, Kate has a crush on too. And whoever Kate has a crush on, Andy has a crush on. Andy identifies as gay, and Kate identifies as straight, and it doesn't really matter because their crushes are always on the same person until they have a crush on the same person, and somehow this feels a little bit different. Like this might actually be a real crush, and they're trying to figure out like who's gonna win at the end of the day. This new guy who just came in from a camp that they go to. They go to a drama camp every year, every summer. His name is Matt, and Matt's kind of the object of their affection. And so this is a really fun story about what happens when your camp romance actually moves into like your real life during the school year kind of situation, and your best friend that you think you always have everything in common with, always be able to confide in, like that starts changing a little bit. So Kate in Waiting is the name of this book by Becky Albertalli. Really fun, like I said again, like really kind of a cool fun romance. It's really great. It has queer characters in it, so for those people who are looking for representation in that area, you will find that in Kate in Waiting. And a lot of Becky Albertalli's books actually have characters identify the LGBTQIA spectrum. Then we have this book, Talia Hibbert, Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. My daughter actually got this book. She was at, sorry, y'all, she was at an event, a college event, and they had this book and they were giving it away. And she grabbed it off of the table, and I grabbed it. I loved how the cover looked, and I took it and I read it, and it's really cute. It's actually about these two people who used to be best friends, Bradley and Celine. They were best friends a long time ago, and they had a misunderstanding and had a falling out. And Bradley is dealing with OCD, and Celine is dealing with kind of perfection in a lot of ways. And also, I think just kind of like this idea of like, that she doesn't want to be in situations that are going to hurt her or cause her pain, which makes sense. But there's a misunderstanding between these two. Something happened that severed their friendship. And through a series of events, they're thrown together over and over again. And they ultimately have to try to figure this out. Is it worth saving? Is it worth not saving? Is it a different kind of friendship now? This is a really fun book. There's some spaces that take place like in the woods. So like they have like some wilderness happening. They're both very smart, and they're both really good characters. So it's a really fun book. Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. Okay. So Nick Stone is also one of my favorite authors, and I've read many of her books. I've talked about her books before. Dear Martin and Dear Justice are the two that this like kind of sit on my heart all the time because of the way those stories are told through the lens of the male characters that she shares and the deep kind of like emotional writing. And she has other stories and she has other really great books. And this is a book that I found called Chaos Theory. It's actually an earlier book. And this one's kind of interesting too, because what it is you have two characters that are dealing with some very different things. So this one actually was written in 2023, so it's after Dear Justin and Dear Martin. Um, but you have two characters. You have Shelby, who really just feels like life is really hard. Like Shelby actually is really dealing with some mental illness. She is feeling detached from a lot of situations. It's hard for her to really connect with things, and she is struggling. She has a past of really having struggled with her mental health, and we kind of get a chance to see a little bit about that in this story. And then we have Andy. And Andy is a person who has a very kind of like privileged life, but is dealing with a lot. And he does it by substance abuse. So he drinks a lot. And the two of them meet, they come together in a really kind of interesting way. And in some ways it's beautiful, in some ways it's actually really harmful. It's not really helpful. And so, kind of, what do you do when you have two people who are kind of in some ways destined to be together, but maybe it's not the right time because they have too many things that are happening for them? It's a really quick read, but it's a heavy read. And I really appreciate because Nick Stone in this book, she actually gives kind of like a reader warning, like a hey reader, just so you know, you're about to go into like this story, and I want you to be ready for this. So here are some things to kind of expect. And so I really appreciate that. And at the very end, she has like some resources, some discussion questions I think are really helpful if people are actually even dealing with substance abuse or dealing with mental health um, and suicide ideation. So, but Chaos Theory is a book that just kind of makes you slow down a little bit and think about the people in your life and pay attention to kind of like some of the stories that might be happening in real life. And kind of also, I think, pay attention to some of the signs that are in here so you can recognize those and some of the people that are around you. So Nick Stone, Chaos Theory, that's the next book. Okay. Last summer, I did two books from the Meant to Be series in the Disney collection. Disney has a whole line of books that take on the Disney princesses and they turn them into like these kind of different tales. Falls kind of closely aligned with like the actual original Disney princess story, but different contexts, different like names, different kind of like situations. But the themes are really similar. So last year I talked about By the Book, which is about the Beauty and the Beast story, like a book editor and like a kind of really cranky celebrity being forced to write a book and kind of push him together inside of his mansion, and she really needs to help him be there. It's like, being held there, but not against her will or anything. And then we also had the one that had the not the Rapunzel, sorry, the Ariel. So like the Kiss the Girl was what that was called. And she was like in a rock band, like she falls in love with another guy. And that was kind of fun. And then we also had If the Shoe Fits, which is like a Cinderella story. Well, the newest one just came out. I just got my copy last week, Tangled Up in You. Christina Lauren actually is a pen name for two authors that come together and they write lots of books and they put their minds together to write this book. In the acknowledgments, they talk about how they both were fans of Tangled for a really long time, Tangled, the Disney movie. So this is really based on the movie Tangled. And you have Rapunzel and the character Wren, and you have Flynn Rider and the character of Edward and Eugene, as he's called later on. And this is really about a girl who's been kind of kept away from society and then kind of goes into college a little bit later. She's 23, 22 when she goes into college, and she meets this guy who's known to be really charming, but not very like, deep. And they cross paths and they keep crossing paths and they get closer. And then a bunch of stuff starts happening. There's a lot of secrets, kind of like surprises that happen in this book that you'll find really familiar if you understand like the story of Tangled, the same kind of feeling around that, but she goes into some places or they go into some places that make you just kind of like, put the pieces together. It's really good because it's super easy to read in terms of like the accessibility and like the flow of the story. Because if you're a Tangled fan, like you would love this anyway, you're going to find yourself going along and recognizing parts of like the themes of the story, in the context that Christina Lauren put it together. And I think it's also going to make you kind of like consider like how love happens. Like, what does love look like? What does a simmering love kind of look like? Perfect beach read. Tangled Up in You by Christina Lauren. Um, a Meant to Be book by Disney. I got three more that I'm going to introduce to you that I've read, and then I'm going to go into my pile of books that I want to read. So let's go a little bit faster. Reggie and Delilah's Year of Falling. This book was so sweet. I really liked this book a lot. This is written by Elise Bryant, who also wrote Happily Ever After. She has other books that she's written both for like a middle grade and also young adult. Um, so Delilah is like a person who's like in a punk rock. She actually is kind of shy, is kind of pushed into the limelight, and now she's like the kind of the singer of like a punk rock group. And then you have Reggie, who's super nerdy, like just like, Dungeons and Dragons, like all this, comic books and kind of like anime and stuff, and doesn't want to really share who he really is. He thinks that Delilah won't like him for who he really is. And Delilah's kind of keeping some secrets of her own. And they are slowly like just taking their time, kind of getting to know each other, but they're not being 100% honest about who they are. And so it's just like this follows them for a year. And it's really a very sweet book about what happens when you decide to kind of be yourself, but also what happens when you're scared to be yourself. And I like it because it breaks some stereotypes around what Blackness can look like. Um, Going into the blurredom and going into like this kind of punk rock situation, this makes it kind of fun to see a different version of what Blackness looks like and what young Black love looks like. All right. Nicola Yoon's brand new book. This book came out just this year, just a few months ago, actually, One of Our Kind. She has been touring around promoting this book, and I already pre-ordered this book. So I knew I wanted to read it. I've read all of Nicola Yoon's books. You know her because of Everything, Everything. The Sun's Also a Star, Instructions for Dancing. She was featured in Blackout and Whiteout. I've done all of these books on reviews here. So you have had a chance to see her and hear me talk about her before, and this is like none of those books at all. This is actually her first adult book. Although I would say you could probably still have, teenagers read it or even like, younger adults read it because it has a really interesting kind of like thought or kind of like a question, like an essential question. I think the essential question, like I want to define it for you, and I also want you to kind of define it for yourself. But if I tell you that it's a space where they create a Black utopia. So where the kind of the most excellent of Black people have created a space of like kind of a gated community, and everything in that gated community is ran by Blackness, like Black police, a Black wellness center, which was a little bit something that you want to be paying attention to. Black shop owners, Black lawyers, like everything in this utopia is Black. And how people end up there is a question, and who's not in there is a question, and what happens when you're there is a question. These are all questions I want you to think about as you're reading this. This is a book that I was like, oh, I need to ask her so many questions. I had a chance to meet her a couple years ago at Comic-Con in San Diego, and I asked her about some of her books, and my daughter was really a big fan too, and she asked her about her books as well. I would love to ask Nicola Yoon questions about this book because there's just so many things I want to know, like what she was thinking as she was writing it. And I want to also make sure people are clear that when we're writing a book, doesn't mean that you are necessarily identifying or agreeing with the characters that you're creating. And that's important, I think, in this story. Patrick Flores Scott talked about that in terms of his book, No Going Back. You don't always write a character that you identify with. Sometimes you write a character you have questions about too. I feel like that's probably a little bit of like what's happening with One of Our Kind. So One of Our Kind by Nicola Yoon. And the last book that I'm going to recommend for our book dump is a book that took me a second to kind of grab onto, but I read enough reviews that I was kind of curious about it. So you kind of have to read this understanding that like she is not literally saying like, my mom is dead, but like she also is really thinking about what kind of happened as her mom was like raising her and some of the things that her mom did that weren't so great. And what happened to her as a person with the influence of her mom, and then what's happened to her as a person without the influence of her mom. It's a really fun, it's interesting. Okay, I don't say fun, like haha, but like it is a little bit funny. She has some really funny parts in here. She's a really funny person, and she's writing, you kind of like get caught up in her humor. This book is called I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. You'll know Jeanette McCurdy because she was the actress on Nickelodeon. She had a couple different shows. One of them was iCarly, one of them was Sam and Cat. And there's a lot of things that were happening to her during this time, a lot of things that were going on. And if you watch the show Quiet on Set, the documentary about what was happening with kids on the Nickelodeon set, she's one of those kids that has a little bit of a story that talks about kind of the toxicity that was happening on those sets. So I always want to throw a story in there about an actual person. She wrote this book, it's her autobiography, her memoir. And it's a really quick, fun, interesting, kind of like makes you want to laugh, even if you don't really want to laugh. Like it's one of those kind of books. Okay, we're almost done, because now it's time to talk about the books that I'm going to be reading this summer. Right now, I just started this one, The Neighbor Favor. I went to two bookstores while we were at the beach to kind of find so I could start my summer reading early, and they were all out. This is a really popular title. I actually saw it on a list of like essential summer reads. So I don't even know which list it was, like where I saw that at. But when I saw it, I kind of read the review and the little synopsis. I really thought I really wanted to read it. It's basically short story, long story short. It's about a woman who has a favorite author. Her author is no longer writing the books that she really loves. They kind of cross paths, but not knowing that's each other. I'm so like still in the beginning of this book. I'm really excited about it so far. So this is the book that that I'm reading right now currently. Maybe I'll review it next season. I went to the bookstore today just to look, and I came out with like three books. So these are the books that I am also reading this summer. Fake Dates and Mooncakes. This is one that I've just liked how it looked and looked at the kind of synopsis of it. And I really liked what it said. So this is one about a guy who is joining, he's like actually entering a mooncake contest, and it has a crush on another guy that's also in this mooncake contest competition. And they kind of like this. I don't know. I haven't read it, but I liked how it talked about. It's like a little fake dates and mooncakes is what it's called. Seems like a really fun romance all around food. That sounds good. You know, I love some Alice Oseman, otherwise known as the author of Heartstopper. I've been reading almost all of her books at this point, and so the two I have not yet read are Radio Silence. So I grabbed this. I saw on the shelf, and I said, "Oh, I have to get it." So I grabbed this. And I'll tell you about it more later, but just from what I've read from the cover, it's basically about a podcast and about a person who makes fan art. And the person who has the podcast and the person who makes fan art kind of like start hanging out together. Like, I don't know. I'm still learning about these books. I Was Born for This is another Alice Oseman's book. Um, this is about a rock star and about I think it's a fan, is that right? Um, this is why I'm telling you, these books I want to read. So I haven't yet got into all of them. Again, I liked the cover. I liked what I was reading on the back of it. And then Pageboy is a book that this is like on all the lists about one of the best books of the year. And I hadn't yet had a chance to read this, and I really wanted to read this story. And so by Elliot Page. And so I have this on my list as well because I feel like I'm behind. So I'm catching up to read this story, this book, this memoir. And those are my books. Like I have more books that I also just went like to kind of a place where they were kind of had a bunch of books that were left over, and I grabbed a couple of those books I want to read. But I think I'm going to focus on these five I just talked about and try to get through those, which I think will be really fun because they're all summer reads. They're pretty quick and pretty easy and pretty engaging. I'm going to encourage you. I know I was talking fast, but there's a lot of books I was going through. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 books I talked about today. 14. And out of those books, you can find at least one or two that you want to read this summer. I hope so. And if none of these books appeal to you, find a book that does appeal to you. The point is that I want you reading this summer, and I want you helping other people to read too. So share this with other people. The book dump is really designed to encourage you to think about, if I don't want to think about which books to read, like here you go. Here's a dump of all the books that I recommend for this summer. We're going to come back together in the fall season for season 5. I can't believe it'll be season 5 already. Um, and we're going to talk about the whole new batch of books. I'm really excited about that. I'm hoping to get some more people to interview. There are some live events that'll be happening I did my first like Zoom live event with Patrick Flores Scott like a month ago. I'll also be doing like some in-person events that'll be happening. As much as we can talk about books, let's keep talking about them. Let's make sure people know what's out there. I'm excited about sharing these with you. It's been a beautiful season 4 in honor of my mom. It's been a beautiful summer dump right here. Hope you have all the things that you need. I'm going to put all of the authors with all of their links into the comments of this video, into the little bio part. So you'll be able to kind of click on all the things you want to click on and find these books, or find more books by these authors if that's appealing to you as well. Thank you so much for being here and tuning in. Every time we can talk about books is my favorite day. So thank you, and keep reading, everybody. Thanks for tuning in with Talking Books with Tanisha. Have a great day.